2014, and I was 11 years old. I and my cousin Mike, who was 14 years old at that time, and I were planning a trick-or-treat on the upcoming Halloween night. I planned to ride my bike to Mike's house so we could do the trick-or-treat in his neighborhood, and then I would ride back to my home the following day. I walked up to Mike's house, the door already ajar. Faces I didn't recognize turned to greet me. Every one of them seemed older than me, and their conversations were more mature. But as I stepped into the room, a few stretched out their hands, introducing themselves with hearty greetings. "Why the spooky outfits?" I asked, pulling Mike to the side. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a hush. "Tonight's more than just trick-or-treat. We're heading up to the hill when the clock strikes 12. Got some beer to enjoy under the moonlight. These costumes? Let's just say it's to keep the police guessing." Mike's friends went to the nearby hill at 8 p.m., and Mike and I decided to go for a trick-or-treat. Our bags were empty, and we wanted to fill them up before midnight to join Mike's friends. Mike and I decided to knock on the doors where no one was knocking, and the houses with no decorations. But we were so dumb then, we didn't realize it was a bad idea, because houses with no decoration signal you to get lost, or they do not welcome trick-or-treat children. After walking for some time, we found houses with no decorations, but their lights were on, so we decided to try our luck there. I knocked thrice, but no one opened the door. My cousin stepped forward and started punching at the door. After a few seconds, a boy around 24 or 25 years old opened the door. He was looking so angry that he yelled at us, "Who the hell are you? I swear I will kill you both if I hear a knock on the door again." Mike aggressively replied to him, "Oh really, come and try then." The boy was so pissed off at Mike's reply he said, "I will be watching you," and he slammed the door in our faces. We ignored him and went to other houses for trick-or-treat, and by 11 p.m., our bags were half filled. Mike said that we should stop this now and go to the hill where his friends were waiting for him, and I also agreed with him because most of the houses had already closed their lights by 11 p.m., which was a clear signal for us that they were not welcoming the trick-or-treat children anymore. So, we went to the hill and found Mike's friends after a few minutes. They were drinking beer and having fun, and we joined them. I was sitting in the corner eating some of my candies, and honestly, I was not enjoying it at all. After some time, I noticed that Mike had disappeared, and one of his friends, wearing a zombie mask, noticed my confusion. "Mike, oh, he just went out for a bit," he said, making a gesture as if he was taking a leak. I wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed back then, so I nodded, accepting the explanation. Not long after, another of Mike's pals approached, a vampire cloak draped over his shoulders. "Hey," he said, pointing to the hill. "Up there, there's a wooden box. We've got some extra beer bottles hidden. Could you grab them? We didn't want the cops finding our stash since we're not exactly of age." They gave me a torchlight, and I brought them beer. It was pitch black dark there, but somehow, with the help of directions they gave me, I found the box where the beer bottles were stashed. I picked up some bottles, and just then I heard Mike's voice, "Help." I looked in the direction of the voice and was shocked to see someone pulling Mike into the bushes. I wanted to help him, but knew I could not do anything alone. I ran back to his friends and told them, "Hey, Mike needs help." Their laughter filled the air when I recounted what I'd seen. A tall boy with a painted skeleton face stepped up, still chuckling. "It was just a joke. Mike was in on it," he said, giving me a playful nudge. "But what about the other boy, the one dragging Mike?" I asked. The laughter stopped. The group exchanged uneasy glances. The tall boy's grin faded. "We sent Mike alone," he admitted. Heart racing, we sprinted up the hill to the spot where I'd last seen Mike. We ran towards it, finding Mike on the ground, battered and still. Blood trickled from his lips and his body lay limp. Regret weighed me down. I should have acted sooner, not just run back to the group. One of Mike's friends called the ambulance, and after 5 minutes, the ambulance arrived, and our families also arrived at the hospital. The doctor told us that whoever had attacked Mike had broken his 2 bones and 3 ribs, which caused him to have internal bleeding. 1 day later, when Mike regained consciousness, he told us that the same boy who threatened us on Halloween night had followed us and attacked Mike when he tried to prank me. When police investigated the matter very seriously, they found out that the boy who attacked Jay was a drug addict with mental conditions. Life was often quiet in Beacon Hills, a little near Sacramento. Most residents here had a routine: work, school, church on Sundays, and weekly visits to the market square. But as October neared its end, jack-o'-lanterns appeared in storefronts and displayed eerie decorations, and the kids and they buzzed with excitement. Halloween was the town's golden event. It was like their Super Bowl. My friends Tim, Lisa, and I grew up together, lived on the same block, and faced everything together. Like every Halloween, we had our custom-made loot sacks and glow sticks around our wrists. We even had walkie-talkies just in case we got separated. And, as the evening darkened, tales of our adventures from past years served as our entertainment. But there was always one place that managed to spook us just a bit. Maple Street, with its ancient oak trees, and in the middle, standing tall and foreboding, was the old Victorian house. No one lived there, or so we thought. In the past, we'd always dart past it, maybe due to the tales we'd heard, or maybe because of our own made-up stories. Last year, Lisa swore she heard a voice calling out when we passed by. This year felt different. Maybe it was the teenage bravado kicking in, but we decided we would ring that doorbell. It was nearing 7:30 p.m. The moon hung low, casting a silvery glow, and with our loot sacks half full, we made our way to Maple Street. The fallen leaves crunched beneath our feet, and the wind had that autumn chill. We shared nervous laughs, each one masking our anxiety with humor. The front yard of that house was no different, overgrown, with thorns appearing to reach out, hoping to snag an unsuspecting victim. The roof had tiles missing, and the windows, some shattered, others murky, told tales of years gone by. But it wasn't just the visuals. The place had an aura. The wind seemed to murmur through the skeletal trees, while the distant howl of a dog gave the setting a disconcerting background track. Then came the moment. Gathering up our courage, we rang the bell. Creaking sounds followed the haunting chime, and then the door opened. The lady that stood before us. Her deep-set blue eyes observed us from a face that was a web of wrinkles. With elongated fingers and chipped nails, her hands clutched an old bag. A faded pendant rested on her neck, its origin hard to place. She had this peculiar scent, like old books mixed with lavender. Before we could speak, her voice, as ancient as hers, croaked out, "Ah, trick-or-treaters. But I fear I have no treats left." As we glanced beyond her, the house looked just as you'd expect. Old furniture, dusty and draped. Pictures, faded by time, hung crooked on the walls. The rest of the evening was a blur of candy and laughter, but it halted when we reached the town's parking lot. It was chaotic. Cars, old sedans, newer SUVs, and even a few news vans created a disorganized maze. Some parents, teary-eyed and others frantic, spoke in hushed but urgent tones. Kids, confused and scared, clung to their elders. The police tried to maintain order, their faces masks of stoic concern. Overhearing snippets of conversations, it was clear. A child was missing. Rumors flew. Was it the old lady? Did she take him? No one knew for sure. As we grouped, deliberating our next steps, we decided it was best to head home. Halloween was over for us. My home wasn't supposed to be scary, but that night, after all the trick-or-treating fun, Beacon Hills turned my home into a den of horror. My place, a cozy 4-bedroom house, was filled with memories of family and love. The walls were adorned with photos of our picnics and birthday celebrations. In the corner, our golden retriever, Sparky, lay sprawled on his favorite rug, snoring lightly. Feeling the night's chill, I decided to warm up with a hot cocoa. I went to the kitchen, passing the dimly lit living room. The light from the TV cast weird patterns on the room, flickering softly. Picking a comfy spot on the couch, I surrounded myself with my favorite snacks and tucked under a throw blanket. As I settled down, something caught my eye. An odd shimmer by the hallway window. Trying to brush off the uneasy feeling, I convinced myself it was probably a reflection from the TV. But then, I saw it more clearly. It was her, the old woman from Maple Street. The silver strands of her hair framed the pale face that stared intently at me, her blue eyes locking onto mine. The room's warmth was quickly replaced by an icy chill, making me shiver involuntarily. The TV flickered sporadically, and Sparky growled lowly from his corner. She suddenly vanished with an eerie air, her eyes locked on me, full of longing, sadness, and something sinister. The room grew colder, a musty scent lingered. I panicked, called family and friends, but they dismissed it. "You're letting the tales get to you," Mike said, but I knew what I saw. Sparky and I huddled, haunted by her face against the window. It was Halloween night in 2016, and I was 14 then. My parents were not home because they were out at Halloween parties with their friends. I was alone at home and was getting bored. So I called my cousin, Benjamin, who lived near my house, and asked him if he could come to my place to stay at night with me, and luckily he agreed. After around 15 minutes, he arrived outside of my home. My parents handed me a small box filled with candies for the children who were supposed to come for trick-or-treat. The day was full of ringing doorbells and kids shouting, "Trick-or-treat," as I handed out candies. Hours flew by, and soon the streets grew quiet. By 11 p.m., the only sound was the movie playing in my living room, where my cousin and I settled in. Our game console sat ready for a gaming session after the film. Suddenly, a knock echoed in the quiet house. I glanced at the clock, then at my cousin. "Who could it be now?" I muttered. It was late, way past the time for candy-seeking kids. To signal that my candy giving was done for the night, I reached over and switched off the porch lights. I opened the door, only to see a man dressed in some cheap, scary costume with a clown mask on his face, standing before me. I was catching creepy vibes from the man, because he was too old for trick-or-treat. I gawked at him and finally asked him, "Hey, are you not old enough for this trick-or-treat thing?" But I did not receive any reply from him. After that, I said to him again, "Bro, I wish I could help you, but don't waste our time and go." This time he said, "Trick or treat," and after looking at him, I was pretty sure he was not a teenager or a child. I told him, "I don't have any candies, so could you please go, because I don't have time for all this." He looked me upside down, and then he again said, "Trick or treat." His behavior was frustrating me, so I told him to go, otherwise I would call the cops. I ignored him and returned to my cousin. I told him everything, but he didn't pay much attention as he was busy watching the movie. I sat with him, and the movie was about to end. My cousin yelled at me to look out the window. I was terrified when I saw two men, covering their faces with the same clown mask and holding knives, peeking through the window. My cousin ran over and locked all the windows, and I went to lock all the doors of my house. I tiptoed to the window, peeking out carefully. My heart stopped. The clown stood there, unmoving. My feet carried me to the kitchen, where I grabbed the pointiest knife. My cousin's eyes widened. "Call the police," he urged. Together, we dashed upstairs, securing ourselves in my bedroom. I dialed 911, my hand shaking. The phone barely touched my ear when a loud crash sounded below. My voice shaky, I whispered into the phone, "Someone's in my house, please hurry." The voice on the other end replied calmly, "Stay with me, we're on our way." The floorboards creaked closer and closer. We held our breath, eyes locked on the door, hearts pounding so loud it was deafening. Every second felt like an eternity. The doorknob jiggled, making us jump. Just then, the distant wail of sirens grew louder. Footsteps rushed away, descending the stairs. Our breaths came out in gasps of relief. We waited a moment, then hurried downstairs, expecting to see the intruders in handcuffs. But the living room was empty, no sign of the clowns or the officers. I quickly said to the officers, "They might have escaped out the back." The officers raced around the house but returned with no sign of the intruders. Their faces had been hidden behind those masks, making it impossible to say who they might have been. Looking around, nothing seemed missing. It was clear, they weren't after our things, they were after us. When all the officers had gone, my cousin found a clown mask in the corner, and when he flipped it over, he found a note in which it was written, "You will see us again." I also informed my parents about the incident, and later that night, my parents arrived. They were worried and vowed to never leave me alone in the house again. The next day, we installed security cameras, and every Halloween night, I still get chills whenever I think about that night.
Thank you for watching. If you want to support our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button.